Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, I have been looking forward to talking to Ann Paulk for quite some time. She's the executive director for the Restored Hope Network, a coalition of ministries that offers hope and healing to those caught in the homosexual lifestyle. Her ministry is fascinating and very powerful and very impacting, and her own life story is just one that, well, I'm going to let her share that with you in just a few moments. And let me encourage you, you may want to check out the website, restoredhopenetwork.com, and it's a tremendous resource. Hi, Ann. How you doing today?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. Great. Well, first of all, tell us about the network. What is it you do and how do you go about it?
Well, what is it? We're a coalition of 40-plus ministries, counselors, and pastors across the U.S. that help people who want to change or leave homosexuality. Some people do not wish to leave homosexuality, but we're here for those who do. And what we offer them is pastoral counseling. We have some who are professional licensed counselors. We have about 11 of those within our network. And they come at counseling from a Christian perspective. And
okay.
The process of leaving homosexuality.
Okay. Okay. I think we're having a little bit of a technical thing. I'm not. Are you there?
I am.
Okay,
I can
good.
Hear you.
All right, we'll kind of work with this. All right, your own story is fascinating, and I think it certainly lends to what you do. Give us a little bit of an overview of your life story.
Well, I ended up dealing with homosexual feelings when I was a teenager, and even prior to that. In college, I embraced a lesbian identity, and threw God out as something that inhibited me following that path. I didn't know it was actually a person, and God himself existed. So it was just so far from me a concept. I'd gone to church, but it was very liberal churches where they taught moral stories. So I hadn't actually encountered the one who wrote the Bible until my first year in college. I began having dreams about Jesus. And from there, I began to have I called out to him, and I had answers, and things kept happening, and miraculous things. And eventually, beginning of my sophomore year, I surrendered my life to Jesus Christ for the first time ever, and felt the Holy Spirit was just so profound and beautiful. It felt like he plugged me in to the life I had been missing. Honestly, it felt like a kitchen appliance that you took the plug from and you plug it into the wall, and all of a sudden it becomes, alive. Wow. It becomes useful, right? Well, that's how I felt. And from there, God began to nurture me, love me, and teach me how to have healthy female friendships, not homosexual friendships. So, or relationships, you should put it that way. I should put it that way. So, what I came to realize is that being molested when I was younger really did set a course for my life in making wrong assumptions and vows about it being dangerous to be a girl. And that later on in puberty made perfect sense that I'd be drawn to girls because I was missing that piece in my life. So anyway, I've learned a lot, and I've come a long way, and God has blessed me with 3 sons and having been married for 21 years. Unfortunately, my husband went back into the lifestyle after 21 years. So that's a sad point in my life, and yet I know that God changes lives, and I know that he will not give up on anyone who is fully committed to him, that he is able to and willing to love and nurture someone out of homosexuality. Not a problem for him at all. So
this topic, Ann, is huge, and I am so glad that you deal with it the way you do. And you're a living example of something I've said so often: whatever God saves you from or brings you through, he turns you around and makes you a minister too. And I just don't think the church, we Christians, know what to do here. We talk about it. We say, well, we love the sinner, but we hate the sin. Most who are caught in this lifestyle could probably quote the scriptures better than we can, but they're not getting from us a way out, a loving acceptance and knowing that nobody is transformed overnight. It takes a while. What are we doing wrong with this?
Well, I think we're doing one of two things wrong generally in the church. One is we pretend it's not an issue. And I don't believe that's possible anymore, but there are still places in the U.S. that pastors think there's no one in their congregation dealing with those attractions. I find it hard to believe, because every time we ask somebody or we go to a congregation and we speak, we ask how many of you are impacted by someone you love, your own struggles, your neighbors, your coworkers, your whatever, with homosexuality, and all the hands are raised. I mean, all of them. So I think it's a misunderstanding that it's a topic that isn't something we have to address. It is a topic we have to address, and it is going to cascade over the church like a tidal wave if we don't face it. Now, on the other hand, it's possible to face the topic and not do so in a redemptive manner, and so see it as an issue only. It is politically an issue, no question. I mean, look at all the legal situations going on around the U.S. right now. But God is over and above. He rules over every nation, and his law supersedes it and will be the underpinnings for all of eternity. And so what we have to understand is nations can get it wrong. But God always has it right, always has it right. And his word is profound. In 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11, there's some amazing things written in Scripture. And it says, "Do not be deceived, my brethren. These individuals will not inherit the kingdom of God." Amongst that is mentioned homosexuality, among another fine list of serious sins. Adultery, slander, fornication, you name it, it's all in there. We all fit somewhere in that list. But at the end of it, it says, "Such were some of you, but you were washed, but you were sanctified, but you were cleansed by the Spirit of our God. In the name of Jesus, we are cleansed." Even Paul knew people who had left homosexuality.
Unbelievable. Does the homosexual see the church as homophobic?
Yes, and that's because the churches don't embrace homosexuality. The only thing they'll be satisfied with is if a church embraces homosexuality as a non-issue.
Right.
And so what are we caving to? Are we going to do the proper thing, or are we going to cave into the culture? There are two options for us. We can condemn. That's one, I guess. That's not a good option. We can do what the culture says, which is embrace homosexuality. And if you're not embracing homosexuality, you're not embracing me. Therefore, you're condemning judgmental, bigoted haters, etc. Or we can give God's prescription, which is, I'm going to love the sinner, but I'm going to point out sin so that the Spirit of God can redeem individuals from sin. And that's the whole point. God is holy. God is holy. And we can't avoid that. And he knows how to redeem sinners from sin, including homosexuality.
It's been said that we'll never know what redemption or grace really is until we point out sin.
I would have to agree. It's a narrow way to enter the kingdom of heaven. All of the apostles had times in their life, and I love Peter because he's a great example of, either falling down on his knees after catching this huge horde of fish and saying, "Go away from me, Lord, I'm a sinful man." It's at that point he recognized his inability to grasp the person who was right in front of him, and that God was holy and had all the answers and the provision. And Peter was small and lowly. He got himself into the proper perspective. And what did Jesus do? He said, "No, I'm going to make you fishers of men." So he raises up those who are bowed down, and he will humble those who are prideful. And so God is wonderful, and there's a place for humility, and admitting our sin is a profound place of humility. God lifts up those who are bowed down. He raises their eyes.
And how powerful is this? I mean, you were caught in it. I've heard it's one. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just extremely powerful, and it's gripping in everything that you think and do. We know that God obviously can restore that and break that, but how powerful is it?
Well, people come to believe that they are primarily gay, which is a wrong thinking. And so everything is turned upside down. So as the Spirit of God begins to work on a life, God begins to realign a person with truth. And that's where the power of Scripture is particularly profound. Everything we have to make a difference in someone's life is found in Scripture. Mm-hmm. And the one who administrates that is the Spirit of God. And honestly, the message we have is we don't have to save people. God already does that. All we have to do is hold out hope and truth. And we need to embrace, women are just misaligned with their understanding of femininity being a good thing. Men are the same. Masculinity is seen as a bad thing, even though they're trying to obtain it through sexual means. They're trying to conquer it, you see. It's not being just another one of, but how can I gain my masculinity through conquering another guy? And it just doesn't work. So what we know is sin will never accomplish the longings of the heart. We know that. Drugs, alcohol, smoking, it's all difficult to leave. Every single one of those things.
All right, let me take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with Ann Paulk. She's the Executive Director of Restored Hope Network, and you can go to restoredhopenetwork.com. That's our website. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and our special guest today is Ann Paulk. She's the Executive Director of the Restored Hope Network, a coalition of ministries that work together in offering hope and healing to those caught in the homosexual lifestyle. Her own story is fascinating, and her ministry is very impacting, and their website is restoredhopenetwork.com. Okay, Ann, recently, as you well know, Newsweek came out with a pretty blasting article on what is called reparative therapy. Your response to that?
Well, my response is if they're going to prohibit talk therapy for any particular topic, any particular desire, then they're really off the mark. As far as what we advocate talk therapy, which had been misinterpreted as some kind of ice baths and electroshock. I mean, literally came out of the Stone Age with some of these accusations in legislatures around the country. Wow. But were they identified as such during the Newsweek article? No. Newsweek focused on 3 weeks of fact gathering, information gathering from sources that were pro-gay, and only 1 week even asking for our input. So I think their bias was very clear. Yeah. But basically, we advocate that anyone should be able to work through issues that they find troubling in their lives. And if they want to seek a Christian therapist or a licensed counselor for those that kind of help, that we're for advocating for that. It is self-determination, which is a basic understanding within the mental health community. If someone comes presenting an issue they want help with, that it was the counselor's role to help them in that endeavor. It's client-based requests. So I want to let the people know that this summer we have a very special conference coming up here in the Portland, Oregon area. Restored Hope Network's Hope 2014. We put on an annual conference, and it has Dr. Larry Crabb as our keynote, and Dr. Joseph Nicolosi, along with Dr. Sandy and Earl Wilson.
Wow.
And then we have 24 additional workshops, ministry time, worship done by Georgine and Dan Rice, who are fabulous. And Georgine's a talk show host up here in Portland, Oregon with Salem Radio Network. So that's going on. Also,
when is that? When is that, Ann?
July 27th and 28th.
Is that on that's on your website, right?
It is. It's the first picture you'll see on the website, the one with the hands, the blue and green.
Okay.
If you click that, it will take you to all the related information.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. Also, in case anybody is struggling, who's a woman who's struggling with homosexuality, I wrote a book particularly helping with that, Restoring Sexual Identity, Hope for Women Who Struggle with Same-Sex Attraction. And that is basically the how-tos with much greater detail than we can get into here, obviously. Okay. So, yeah. There's a bunch of other resources on the website.
Given the climate of this, and it seems that, quite frankly, the homosexual community is winning across the board with acceptance and laws and everything else, and you know all the things we're talking about. Is it possible that your organization could be brought up under hate crimes?
Well, right now, I don't think that the hate crimes legislation, did it pass? I can't remember. There was a huge battle over that. They did hold back part of the legislation. It's possible in the future, yeah, because in Canada, if you even read Leviticus or 1 Corinthians 6:9-11 about the hope of Christ to redeem sinners, and it mentions homosexuality, you can be put in jail.
Yeah.
You could be extradited from the country. So, yeah, that's a possibility. But you know what? Knowing what I know, I would be remiss not to offer it. And I feel like now's the time to stand on the truth of Jesus Christ, that he still changes lives, even in the area of homosexuality. I think that message is too profound, and I feel God's good, kind will supporting us as we proclaim this. I don't know what will come, but I will stand in the gap for those who are seeking help. So that's where we're at.
That's wonderful. All right. Now, let's go back to what draws people into this. Some will say, well, I was born that way. They're trying to get scientists to say, yeah, there's some genetic potential here. You know the drill. And what I have learned in doing so many interviews on this, it appears, maybe even your own story, something traumatic happened in your life. There was an abuse, or there was a lack of relationship with a parent that leads someone to go this direction. What's your thinking on all that?
Well, in my own personal life, there was a traumatic event. I was molested at the age of 4. And that, in my mind, I thought of being a girl, being feminine, as putting myself at risk. And so throwing that off later set me up for same-sex attraction struggles. It really did. For some, that's fairly common. In fact, I did a non-scientific survey of 265 women leaving the lifestyle in 2000. They literally filled out an 8-page single-space survey because this group of people had never been surveyed before. And they opened up their hearts and souls, and what I got out of that data was that 91% of the individuals had incurred some kind of childhood abuse. 7 out of 10 had had a sexual abuse situation happen in their childhood. And that's way above any other percentage. And that's for women, particularly. Dr. Stanton Jones, former provost of Wheaton College, wrote that the likelihood of a boy entering a gay identity or gay life was 3 times as high if he had had sexual abuse in his childhood, or a sexual adult encounter with a child in his youth. Oftentimes, of course, men are the perpetrators of that sort of thing, whether they typically present as homosexual or heterosexual. They may have pedophilic attractions, and when they do that, they damage someone's life. And the damage may come out in all sorts of different ways, depending upon what the needs and the thoughts of the child are at the time. And so, yeah, there are those. As far as the genetic basis, there is no gay gene. Even the APA acknowledges that, and which is a very liberal organization, the American Psychiatric Association. Dean Hamer, Dr. Dean Hamer, he did the brain or the X chromosome study on the cadaver brains. Honestly, he admitted 10 years later, after it had been announced on Oprah, honestly, in 1992. In 2002, he admitted in the Gay Advocate, it was the title of the entire gay publication, "There is no gay gene," and Dr. Dean Hamer admitted that, and he's a gay researcher himself. So bottom line is there's a lot of biased reporting, and particularly Newsweek that just came out with 2 articles. What you find are that most of the researchers that claim a scientific basis of homosexuality, a genetic basis, are actually gay researchers, or they're gay reporters, or gay experts that say no one can change. Well, they don't want to change, so why should we take their point of view in saying that a person can't change? They haven't even tried. They haven't even wanted to.
Is it an addiction?
I believe there are addictive qualities to homosexuality, just as there are to any other sexual problem. There are porn addictions sometimes and sexual addictions. Sometimes men end up having anonymous encounters, and that's obviously sexual addiction. And so there's an emotional addiction aspect, attempting to glean from someone else the core need of a human being, as if they contain the answer. So what Dr. Elizabeth Moberly said in her Homosexuality, New Christian Ethic book that was brilliant about 30, 40 years ago, was that it's in essence a cannibalistic compulsion. It's you admire someone who appears to be a better version of yourself, and you attempt to gain the qualities by having that intimate relationship with the other person, instead of actually gaining the qualities of yourself. And so that itself is, there's some subtleties to all of this, but the point is develop yourself. Become the woman that you want yourself to be. Become the man that you want to be. Don't try and gain it by having sex with someone else.
Let me just say to our viewers and listeners again, restoredhopenetwork.com is Ann's website. Check out, because they're going to have the conference in July up in Portland. You may want to attend this. One other question, then I want you to plug your book again, and that is this. Deep down in the heart of somebody that's caught in this lifestyle, whether they've had any exposure to the gospel or not, do they believe that something is wrong?
I believe there is even truth showing through Newsweek's article. People who are not even Christians, who are really against Christianity, there's a strong reaction against anyone saying it's possible to leave homosexuality. So it shows an internal conflict, honestly. And I believe that there is an internal conflict, that nobody sees gay as being particularly good. It's something that seems to meet the deeper underlying need of connection and intimacy and worth and well-being, but it doesn't fulfill on its promise. And that is the very nature of homosexuality. But again, for women who are dealing with homosexuality or same-sex attraction, you can grab this book, Restoring Sexual Identity, by Ann Paulk, that's me, of course, through Amazon.com is where you can grab it. It's published through Harvest House, which I'm grateful to partner with them. But, there's so much hope for an individual who surrenders to Jesus Christ. There's always hope. Now, can we force someone to change? No. Should we? No. A person ought to want to obey Christ with their lives. And in that perfect scenario is where you see God ministering to the deepest parts of a person's life. No one can force anybody to drink water, mind you, change from homosexuality, And so bottom line is the personal will, the desire is vital and very important. But where people do surrender in that area is we find tremendous hope and healing and expectation of God. and newness of life and renewed relationships and better understanding of who God made them to be. And it wasn't to be homosexual. You're made to be a woman or a man in the image of Christ and to be refined into a more and more reflective image. And that is the purpose for all of us, to have intimate relationship with the one who created us and who knows how to remake us into his image. And that's the pathway every Christian is on.
Yeah. And you are an inspiration and delight. Let's stay in touch and maybe visit again before your conference in July, and keep up the good work. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, you can go to Ann's website, restoredhopenetwork.com, check out her book, and also check out the conference coming up in the Portland area in July. Her book is also available at Amazon.com. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And let's get together again soon, okay?
Lord bless you. Take care.
God bless you. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market. But at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and our very special guest is Dr. Becca Johnson. Now, she's a clinical director of a residential program for female survivors of sex trafficking, and she's a licensed psychologist for over 25 years, and she's going to be this featured speaker of a very special day coming up June 3rd. That's a Tuesday, and it's going to be from 8 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon right here at the Rogue Valley Medical Center at the Smolin Center Auditorium, and she'll be speaking on this issue. And let me encourage you to sign up and be a part of that. So, Dr. Johnson, nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to being in Medford.
Oh, you'll love it. Well, sex trafficking, as you know, we are Southern Oregon. We're just north of California. We're on the I-5 corridor, one of the biggest trafficking corridors in America right here through our town.
Yes.
Tell us about this issue. How big is sex trafficking?
Well, I wish I could say it's not that big or not that bad, but it is actually horrific. It is, when you think about the top 3 criminal activities in the world, which is selling guns, selling drugs, and now selling people, human trafficking, or the selling of people, is the fastest growing, and it's horrible. They estimate 27 million people around the world are victims of human trafficking, and of that, 80% are women and children.
Wow. And this happens at a very young age. We've talked about how they begin to coerce their victims, but boy, it goes clear down into very young ages, doesn't it?
Yes. They say that the average age of entry into sex trafficking or prostitution is 12 to 13 years of age. There's been a lot of studies or research validating that. And so my figure of 27 million was all human trafficking, which includes labor trafficking, which we also have in this I-5 corridor. But sex trafficking is very fast growing because of this fact that the groomers, the pimps, the traffickers have found that they can lure these young girls, very young, as I said, 12 and 13-year-olds. They can just lure them by all this attention and affection, and especially they target young girls that have difficult family lives, but not always.
So why do so many young girls fall for it? I mean, how do they get drawn into this?
Well, unfortunately, so many of them have already been sexually abused by maybe a family member, a neighbor, a coach, a teacher, somebody. So they've already, in a sense, been sexualized and been victimized, and they've experienced a trauma. And perhaps they come from dysfunctional families, which a majority do, but as I said, not all. So here they are vulnerable. They've already been victimized, traumatized, and along comes this older, usually cute looking young man, and he offers her the world, offers her dreams. I always say, if she needed a father figure, he'll be the protective father. If she needs a cute older boyfriend, then that's what he is. If she needs someone who's connected, like an agent, to get her a record contract or a movie contract, then that's what he is. He has all the connections. He makes promises. He listens to her, which a lot of people don't, maybe in her life. So someone that just says she's beautiful, she's special, she has talent, I'll fulfill your dreams, and it's an easy catch.
Once they are confiscated, then all of a sudden they just disappear.
Many of them do. And I was talking to one mother several years ago whose daughter was missing, and she was just wrought. She was just so beside herself, wondering where her daughter was. But I was told, and I don't know where the statistic comes from, so I can't verify it, but I was told that 95% of the girls that go missing don't have someone, frantically trying to find out where they are, because they've already been perhaps in a foster care, maybe in a group home. They've run away maybe before. So this time when they ran away with the boyfriend, who's actually the pimp, no one is really looking for them. So pimps know where to target. They go to group homes, they go to malls where girls are maybe walking around unsupervised. They go to bus stops. They know where to go. In fact, there was I want to go ahead and finish this. There was a pimp that once said, you don't get it. We spend our whole waking hours trying to figure out how to deceive these little girls. Wow,
amazing. Now, part of your work is dealing with those who have been caught up in it for I don't know how, but in some way they came out and they now are trying to recover. I can't imagine that life and how long they've been in it. I've interviewed a few that were in it for a couple of years and finally escaped. Can they be healed? Can they come out of this?
Well, I believe definitely, yes. Not without a lot of work and time and patience and grace and mercy and a lot of love. But I do believe that healing is possible. And I've seen it, but I've also seen that it's usually not a quick fix, that it is a long process. And it takes all those things that I just mentioned.
What's the first step, Dr. Johnson, once they're out, to provide a safe place?
Yes. And that's so important, because they've been in a place where they have experienced force, fraud, coercion, manipulation, threats. There's just so much involved. One thing I didn't say earlier, I'm going to backtrack, is that so many of them, when they first enter or first have this boyfriend, everything is wonderful. It's like their dreams have come true. And then slowly but surely, they get manipulated into doing things that they are not comfortable with. Or the boyfriend says, we need money to pay the rent, and I don't know what we're going to do, but my friend said he'll pay me, give us some money if you sleep with him. And once she does that, or hey, you could strip at the local stripper club and that would get us some money. And that's like the first step of getting her to go down the road of just starting to sell her. There's others I know. I know this one survivor who shared, she thought she met her Prince Charming. She was in college studying, and he was just wonderful. Her knight in shining armor. Mm-hmm. And then she said it was like overnight he just changed into this monster. Now, I do have to say, too, that not all girls in America go this route. I think most do, and that's the route through being groomed and manipulated and loved, or falsely loved. But there's others that are in gangs, that are part of that family of a gang, and they have to service the gang, and they have to provide for the gang, and so they have to go out and are told or forced to sell themselves. The third is a guerrilla, what we sometimes call a guerrilla pimp, and it's just someone that abducts girls and puts them out. Sometimes they will abduct girls and then violently violate them or rape them, gang rape them, and then turn them out and say, well, we know where your family lives or your friends or other people. And so it's not all this loving, grooming manipulation. There are other ways of entry.
All right, let me take a break here, Dr. Johnson, and then have you come back and help us again how we also can help those who are in this and what we can do to get them out. And again, Dr. Johnson will be here in the Rogue Valley coming up Tuesday, June 3rd, and she'll be lecturing at the Smullen Center from 8 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. And there is a charge for that, which includes a light breakfast and lunch. So you may want to check that out. And we'll be right back with Dr. Becca Johnson in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and our very special guest today is Dr. Becca Johnson, and she's a psychologist and a clinical director, a residential program that she heads up for female survivors of sex trafficking. And Dr. Johnson's going to be lecturing here in Medford coming up June 3rd, and I would encourage you, if you're working in this area and feel led to be a part of this and help people, she'll be lecturing at the Smullen Center there at the Rogue Valley Medical Center in the Smullens Auditorium from 8 until 4:30 on Tuesday, June 3rd. And you may want to call Rogue Valley Medical Center to get registered. Dr. Johnson, wow, this is so big. Can these girls ever learn to trust a man again?
It's interesting you said trust a man as opposed to trust anybody, because trust is a big issue, and trusting men, I think, is you're correct, is a lot harder. But again, I believe, yes, I fully believe that that they don't have to remain victims forever, that they aren't going to stay broken, that they can be healed, and that's possible, that they can trust again.
Can they receive God's love?
Well, I think that's a key ingredient to healing.
Mm-hmm. Because wouldn't they see him as a father figure?
I think it's different enough. But I guess that would be the case with anybody who's had problems with an earthly father or an earthly man. Mm-hmm. So it's not just unique to them. The thing that's so unique, if that's even the right word, for these victims of human trafficking is that they've not just been victimized once or twice or 3 times or 4 times. They have experienced multiple victimizations, multiple traumas. It kind of reminds me of a situation I had where I had an older daughter come in with her parents, and I have this checklist of traumas. And I asked the parents to check how many traumas they'd experienced, and I asked the older young adult daughter to check how many traumas she'd experienced. And the parents had about 4 items on this checklist. And the girl, who'd experienced multiple traumas, exploitation, abuse, you name it, she had 18. Whoa. And I think it's hard for us to understand unless we have walked in their shoes. The amount of trauma that they've experienced, that what I say multiplicity of trauma, which then leads to an instability of trying to figure out and navigate the world, which then leads to an inability to cope and to deal with things. So really, they are in survival mode. But one thing I appreciate, and hope you don't mind if I keep talking here.
No, you're fine, great.
But one of the things I appreciate about people's awareness nowadays is that we have switched our perspective that these prostitutes are now, we view them as prostituted. We see them no longer as criminals, dirty, filthy, trash, but now we see them as victims and so worthy, however we view them, so worthy of love and hope. And that's what we want to do. We want to instill, that love and that hope, and that healing is possible. But so many people think of them as, oh, they enjoy the work, oh, they make a lot of money, they choose this. But the reality is being exposed, that they do not like the work. Who would like that? And that they don't choose it.
The reality of this is also starting to show up in some state legislatures where the laws are being changed now.
Yes, and that's wonderful. Across the United States, all 50 states are starting to toughen their laws. So instead of these people who manipulate and trick and, in a sense, rape, sexually assault our young children, and then use them and sell them over and over again, instead of like a 6-month slap on the hand and a small sentence, they're now getting 10 to 20 or more years in prison.
Are some of these suicidal when they come out?
The victims?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very much so. But again, they just, I guess because I view them so...
Well, obviously, God's given you a real heart for them. And
yes, because I know there's hope where they feel there's none. In fact, maybe if I share some of what they think, what they have to tackle, when they are in the life of being prostituted, there's so many things going through their head. And when they come out, they still are very confused of what's real, what's not real, if they can trust us, if they can't trust us. But the things going on in their head are such statements as, well, I deserve this horrible life, or I chose this. At least that's what I was told, that I'm no good, I'm worthless. There's nothing better for me, that I'm to blame, I'm shameful. It's all my fault. I mean, I have a list of like 40 things that I usually share that's going on in their mind. Just these beliefs that they are nothing and that they don't deserve anything and that it is all their fault. So we like to just really help them by exposing those lies. And I also, when I give seminars, I want the people to understand, not just knowledge. I don't give seminars to help people increase their awareness. My goal is always to increase their empathy and their ability to understand from the heart. In fact, nowadays the big term is to be trauma informed, to make sure your programs and everything are trauma informed. And what I say is, I use the term, I want people to be trauma sensitive, because I believe that engages the heart. And to do that, we have to understand what they are thinking and what they're feeling. And when it comes to feelings, they're overwhelmed with that shame, that blame, that feeling of worthlessness.
Wow. It just appears to me you've been given a special anointing from God to do this, and that He's using your heart to do the power of His work. And I want to say thank you. A lot of times parents are in shock when they find out that their child's been involved in this. Even if they were taken away, or maybe they were involved on the side or some level. What can you say to a family member when they first get exposed that this is what happens, that they don't overreact the wrong way?
Yeah. Well, you said it perfectly, Perry, and that is that don't overreact. Don't blame, don't shame, just love and accept. And again, it is very important that everyone sees them as victims. They may not feel like they're victims. We see a progression of them feeling like, wait, I did choose this, because that's what they were told to believe and manipulated. Well, you chose this. This is who you are. Mm-hmm. So to get them to go from this is who I am and I chose it to, oh, I was a victim. That takes a while. And so family who may want to immediately say, oh, that jerk of a pimp, she may say, but I loved him and he loved me. And so we have to realize that we have to go slow. There's that trauma bonding of still being attached if there was that emotional attachment. And so it's just, again, that grace, love, mercy, patience, all those things that are very important.
Dr. Johnson, it appears to me, and I know this is a simple question, and I don't want it to be that, but it appears to me this is all avoidable if parents know where their kids are.
You know, I'd like to think that. And I guess the majority would be true, but I know the story of one girl who lived at home, went to youth group, and was targeted. And this guy just happened to always be around where she was at the, whatever, like a 7-Eleven or a Jamba Juice or someplace. And she got to know him. And then he would say, well, sneak out on Friday nights and let's hang out. So she'd just sneak out her window, and her parents would have no reason. She was a good student in school, junior high, and was going to the youth group and went to church on Sundays. And pretty soon they became involved. And then pretty soon he started selling her, but she still lived at home and went to youth group. So I think there is a point that I always use that example, and it's probably a rare one, but.
No, but it makes your statement. Again, I'm glad to see, first of all, legislatures begin to recognize what this is. I'm really glad that we're talking about this openly, and more groups and organizations are beginning to deal with it. You're coming to town here because now we have an organization here in Southern Oregon that's beginning to deal with this. Thank God this is now beginning to be handled, and I only got about a minute left, but you are seeing girls come out of this, they're being healed and go on with their lives. Can you just give us a little example of that?
Oh, you know, what a privilege it is to come alongside. You know, you said earlier, oh, it's great what I do, but I want to bless the people on the front lines that are there doing outreach and telling them there is another choice, there is another possibility, there is a way out. Those are the people on the front line. I always said my motto is to help the hurting heal, but in recent years, I've been used by God to help the helpers help. So I'm helping those that are really on the front lines. Except at our local, our home recovery home here, I am the clinical director, so I oversee the counseling program, and it's a privilege. And also you're talking about legislation, but also law enforcement is being trained.
Right.
And there's legislation being passed that all law enforcement has to become aware of the problem.
Well, Dr. Johnson, thank you. You're a delight. And let me just again encourage our viewers and listeners. She'll be lecturing coming up the 3rd of June, Tuesday, there at the Smolin Auditorium there at the Rogue Valley Medical Center from 8 till 4:30. There is a $25 charge, which includes meals, and so you may want to check that out. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for your time, and God bless you in what you do. Continue to keep up the good work, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.